fantastic beginning.
There'll be spectacle, there'll be fantasy, there'll be daring do and stuff like you would never see.
Hey, a movie. Yeah, we're gonna be a movie.
Starring everybody
And me. There'll be heroes bold, there'll be comedy, and a lot of fuss that is for us so happily.
Hey, a movie.
We can watch it all develop.
Starring everybody. And me. We'll take the world and set it on its ear.
Come on, join in. We're gonna start right here.
Tonight on Hey a Movie, we will be reviewing 1984's Ghostbusters, starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Ernie Hudson, Sigourney Weaver, and Annie Potts, directed by Ivan Reitman.
Oh, good.
There'll be mystery and catastrophe, but it's all in fun. You pay no money, wait and see.
Hey, a movie. Is there any way to stop it? Starring everybody.
Everybody, everybody, and me.
Welcome to Hey a Movie, the podcast where two Christians review Hollywood movies and discuss whether or not their spiritual themes line up with biblical truth. I'm Chris Bastito.
I'm still Martin Glenn.
And now he's not muted.
Yeah, that's
What?
nice.
All right.
I would like to point out that Chris was in charge of the mute button.
Yes. Chris is in charge of basically everything other than being on the recording. Anyway, I just want to address before we go into this, I'm guessing a lot of people are looking at us saying, man, you two don't look like identical twins. But let me tell you something. If you
That's
knew our
actually not wearing a
dad,
hat.
if you knew our dad, you'd really understand it. Anyway, we're done with the Muppet jokes.
You said that.
All right, we're done with the Muppet jokes. Martin,
We're
can you
never
give
done
us
with
a
the Muppet
quick-
jokes.
That's
There's
true.
no
I
being
mean, we
done
named
with
them-
the Muppet jokes.
That's very true. We did name the show after a Muppet intro song.
Yes.
All right. Martin, can you give us a synopsis of the movie, please?
Yes. So today we're reviewing a movie about three college professors who get fired and then start a pest control business. It is an action-packed comedy featuring business promotions, first customers, using startup capital, hiring your first employees, avoiding government bureaucrats, and at least two floating girlfriends. Oh, and the pests happen to be transdimensional spirits and ghosts.
Okay. So before we get into the actual movie, what's your history with Ghostbusters as a franchise?
As a franchise, well, probably not nearly as illustrious as with you, but I grew up watching Ghostbusters. It's a fun movie. I've always liked it. I really liked the second one. I haven't watched any of the new ones, much to my chagrin. I really want to watch them. Well, at least the new ones with Ant-Man, but Paul Rudd. But I just
The
haven't
ones
gotten
that
an
actually
opportunity.
respect the originals?
Yes, but unfortunately, I have kids and I haven't had an opportunity to do it yet. But most of it have just been movies that I've really enjoyed, with the exception of about 9 years ago, I watched some videos about movies in general, and it taught me about the concept of Paragon Heroes, and Ghostbusters was the movie that they used to teach me this really interesting concept. So it's kind of important to me in terms of that, but mainly that's my basic history with the franchise. I just really enjoyed the movies. They're fun movies.
Same here. And I also enjoyed Ghostbusters 2, which tells you that we were in elementary school when it came out. My introduction to the franchise was actually the real Ghostbusters cartoon. That's how I first discovered Ghostbusters were even a thing. And then,
which I think was a good show. Like I thought it was at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I was 5 at the time. I have no idea.
Yeah, I know.
And then I remember very distinctly my family visiting another family that we're friends with for years and years. Like my mom introduced the husband and wife because she went to high school with him, went to college with her, introduced them. And I mentioned to their son, who, if memory serves, is a year older than me, that, I asked him if he knew about Ghostbusters, and he said, "Oh yeah, I love that movie." And I said, "There's a movie?" Turned out they had a copy. We watched it. And as a kid, of course, I thought it was just a superhero movie, basically. As an adult, I fully appreciate the rest of the humor of it. And then Ghostbusters 2 came out, which was kind of the real Ghostbusters, the movie. It was made to be a lot more
Family friendly.
family friendly. The Ghostbusters weren't smoking or drinking anymore. There was no cursing. There was, all that. So
A lot less erotic content.
Yes, absolutely. At no point does one of our heroes bring a sedative on a date, which is a weird thing to do.
No.
That's a very odd thing to do. I mean, I've been out of the game for a while now, dating. I've been out of the dating game for 12 years almost, but 13 years really when I met, 12 since we got married. But don't think I ever brought Thorazine on a date.
Well, I think he got it from Bill Cosby, so I think that's where the.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it comes from.
And in the second movie, they did talk about a giant Jello mold too.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
so that's
all connected.
It is very well connected. So as far as the characters, like, who did you identify with as a kid? Who do you identify with now?
Who do I identify with? That's an interesting question. Yeah, I just flipped that so it looks like I'm talking to you instead of talking at the side of the screen. So it looked dumb. Who do I identify with? As a kid, I identified with Rick Moranis, to be perfectly frank. I was an absolute nerd, and the entire time I was just always rooting for Rick Moranis to be okay. But yeah, though, I identified the most with Ray. I like Ray. He's kind of the person that I would imagine on scenario.
Mm-hmm. And for me, as far as, Venkman's a great character. I mean, Ray is the person I aspire to be, but I think I'm kind of an amalgamation of both. As a kid, I've
you basically were Peter Venkman when I met you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See episode 0 for that story. But when I was watching the cartoon, and I noticed this about myself just in hindsight, that my favorite character in any teen show or movie was always whoever I perceived was the leader of the group. My favorite Ninja Turtle was and is Leonardo. And watching the real Ghostbusters cartoon, my favorite was Egon. Because in the cartoon, he was kind of the leader. And then I saw the movie, and in the movie, I liked Venkman because, again, I perceived him as the leader.
And he kind of is.
So, I think humor-wise, I appreciate Venkman, although I think I'm more of a true believer than Venkman ever became. But I'm getting ahead of ourselves here. So I know we both did a little bit of research on the history of this movie and how it became what it is. So, Martin, can you share with me what Dan Aykroyd saw this movie as?
His principal heart of the film, for him, was just he was exploring the concept of belief. He saw all this stuff coming out about supernaturalism and paranormal things, and he's like, he found it interesting, and so he was exploring what it means to believe in these kinds of things versus not believe, and being a believer. How do you deal with skeptics? And that was for him the main thing he was attempting to explore with the film, which is why the characters are paragons. They are believers. Like even if Peter Venkman only comes to believe in the ghost like during the course of the film, it's literally the first act that he actually becomes a believer, and then he doesn't have any character growth for the rest of the film. Ray doesn't have any character growth. Egon doesn't have any character growth. They're basically who they are at the end of the film. They are the same people as they were at the end of the first act.
Yep.
You know, and
the only one
Ray
who
and Egon are
really,
basically the same as they were at the beginning of the movie.
yep, the only one who really changes is Winston, who is the convert.
Yeah.
When he's hired, he says, if there's a steady paycheck involved, I'll believe whatever you want. And then by the end, he is a genuine believer.
Yeah, and in the first movie, he's not really a main character. He is in the second movie, but in the first movie, he really isn't. He's just the employee. And while he's a great character, I don't want to say anything else. But he's not really a main character until you get to the second film.
Now, are you? I in preparing for this actually watched the Movies That Made Us on Netflix about Ghostbusters, and Dan Aykroyd's history with this whole topic is fascinating. Apparently, his ancestors were like really big into ghost hunting and all this sort of thing in New York City and in Canada, where he grew up. But his Sumpty great grandfather was into that. The other interesting thing I found was his original thought on the movie, or his original draft, was in some unnamed future time when Ghostbusters are as common as plumbers, and they were just one group of these, this nationwide, worldwide group of Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Actually, one of the things that's fascinating about the film is how down to earth it actually is, because the characters are just starting a business, and it is a pest control business.
And we get to credit Ivan Reitman for that, because he looked at Aykroyd's original script and said, "This is nuts," and he said this should be a going into business story. And that's what it is. And it's a great going into business story. I mean, just setting aside biblical truth here for a moment, and just as a story, which both of us are fine with the idea of a story of something that doesn't exist. I also don't believe there are talking lions, and yet I love C.S. Lewis.
Absolutely,
And those of you who are very eagle-eyed will notice in our intro video, he makes quite a few appearances in some of the movie posters I edited us into. Martin's job is to send me a text and say, "Hey, can you change this?" And then he's done, and I have to spend 45 minutes making the changes. So I get the title of producer on this thing, I think.
You should.
Yes. So, what else can we talk about with the actual film? I mean,
I would like to mention the concept of Paragon a little bit deeper, in that in a movie about Paragon, it's not the character that grows, it's the world that grows. So in most movies, what you have is a character has some kind of a flaw, some problem that they have. They come into conflict, and then through that conflict, they have to change in order to meet with the world, in order to actually adapt so that he can be part of this world. Because if he doesn't adapt, if he doesn't grow, if he doesn't change, this conflict will destroy him or her. But with a Paragon story, what a Paragon does is he stands on who he is. He does not change. He refuses to change. And because he refuses to change, the world has to change around him or her. And the classic example of a Paragon would be someone like Captain America. Like, no, I won't change. The world has to change because I'm right and the world's wrong. And thus, it's the world that has the character growth. And we see this in Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters does not have any character arcs, but except for the world. The world has a character arc. where they go from a world of skepticism to a world of true belief by the end of the film. And that's the character growth. New York is the one with the character growth, because the Ghostbusters, they are actually in the right. They are the paragons.
And then somehow in 5 years they completely forget all these things happened.
That's just so they have the second movie, yeah.
And then in 1989, somehow, I heard this comment. In 1989, when Ray and Winston are doing the kids' birthday party, and the kids are all chanting for He-Man. He-Man was not very popular in 1989. It was, what was ridiculously popular in 1989? Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters was ridiculously popular with children in 1989. He-Man was not.
He-Man was early 80s, not late 80s. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, I think we've kind of talked through the movie itself as much as we're going to do, because there's probably 2 billion views of this movie, and we're trying to do something different.
Yeah,
so
that's not really the point here.
Yeah, so the point is we're going to actually analyze some questions about the spiritual themes in this movie, and do they line up with biblical truth? So question number 1.
Sometimes.
Huh? Oh, the answer to that question, yes. Okay, so question number 1 just needs to be asked. Martin, do you believe ghosts are real?
Generally speaking, no.
Okay.
I do believe in a spiritual realm. I do believe in spiritual beings. But it's not the same thing as believing specifically in human beings who have died and whose spirits are still roaming the earth, which is specifically what ghosts are.
Right. And I would 100% agree with that. That's not to say that I don't think that there are people who see something, which really ties me into the next question. Knowing that, what do you think people are seeing when they claim to see a ghost, if they've actually seen something? The obvious answer is some of them are just nuts.
No, naturally, some of them are nuts. But I do think that some of it is, in fact, real. I do believe in the supernatural, and I do believe that there are demons. And I do believe that there are angels, and I do believe that that the souls of people in the past who have died do still exist. They are still real. I mean, I don't think they're on the earth anymore, but I do think that they are still real, and there is, through angels and through God, there is possible interaction with them, which we will get into. But
that is.
But for the most part, I think that most examples of ghosts are really demonic spirits manipulating people.
Yes, I would agree with that. And one thought I've had.
Cheese.
Or what?
Or just bad cheese or something. Like you just ate something.
Yes, that's obviously a possibility. I had a thought about that before, having people I love dearly who have died and died in Christ, and who I believe with all my heart I will see again. And I remember, Martin, I asked you once, is it weird to say hi to my grandmother who's in heaven? And I kind of chewed on that for a lot of years until I got into a conversation with Catholics about praying to Mary. And I really landed on the following, is that, what makes you think dead believers in heaven are now omniscient? I'm not necessarily saying that we really don't know if people in heaven can see what's going on earth if they choose to, but they're not omniscient and they're not omnipresent. They're not observing everything all at once the way God can. So it occurs to me that even if my grandmother is sitting up there in heaven and has the ability to check in on me occasionally, knowing Graham, she probably does, but it's pretty egocentric of me to think that the moment I think to say something to her, she just happens to be watching me, waiting for me to call. I'm fairly sure Graham is, if with Graham being in heaven, and I am as confident of that as I can be, she is either hugging Jesus again, spending time with Pap, my grandfather, who I am also very confident is there, enjoying the ice cream with no calories that I assume must be up there, or asking God if she can have another dog. The point is, I'm sure she's doing heaven stuff.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people there that are loved ones that I knew, family members, her in-laws, my Pap's parents, who she absolutely adored, and who, again, theoretically I met them on Earth, but I have no memory of it because I was a baby. But I heard so many wonderful things about them from both of my grandparents that I look forward to getting to truly know them in eternity. But I feel like Graham's probably doing other stuff up there. My favorite uncle's passed away, and I believe he was saved too. So, I mean, her son's there, her husband's there, her in-laws are there. Like, she's got stuff to do up there.
And I actually think that it's possible if someone has a near-death experience or someone has a vision, that near-death experience or vision can actually involve a loved one, like in their real souls. Sure, that's possible. If God is arranging the meetup, there's no reason why God couldn't bring that person in on that meetup.
Sure.
Do I think that's what usually happens? No, it doesn't seem to be what usually happens. But it certainly is possible, and
Right.
I wouldn't rule something like that out. But it's different than thinking that, my that my grandmother is still like roaming around the earth and, or is currently paying attention to what it is that I'm doing.
Exactly. And also, if God wanted someone to have that experience, it's also possible for him to simply create that for our eyes. I have never had that happen to me. I did have a dream a couple of years ago that I believe was a dream, but I also believe it was a gift from God to me, where I had this one dream for the entire night where I got to spend, to rule them all, yes. To rule Jamal.
Keep going, yeah.
Yeah. I had a dream where I spent the day with Pap, my late grandfather, who is my real life hero, and just spent the day with him and told him about my kids and just all the stuff I wish I could have done with him had he lived past when I was 15, almost 16, because cancer sucks. And I believe that dream was a gift from God.
Yeah.
I don't really think maybe Pap was participating in that from heaven, but I think more God gave me that dream as a way to enjoy that and to just.
And also, I think from a Christian perspective, it doesn't really matter.
No,
it is worth pointing out to our viewers that that one ring to rule Jamal joke, that's actually a reference to an actual guy named Jamal that we used to know.
Yes.
Just throwing that out
there.
That's not just a random joke.
There will be a lot of inside jokes of almost. Yeah. We've known each other for years now, and it hurts a lot to say the real number out loud.
Let's not do that.
But I know Martin looks a lot older than me, but he's really not that much older than me.
A year.
364 days, to be exact. That'll be a trivia question someday if this podcast gets really famous.
Yeah. Well, here's hoping. It also is worth pointing out, I'm actually not as old as I look, but I'm not really young at this point either.
Yeah, neither of us are really young, but yeah, fun fact for the viewers, Martin is exactly 364 days older than me. And so our birthdays are the 17th and 18th of April. So, but my hair's gone less gray than his.
Yeah.
But we both kept our hair. So to all our bald friends out there, we win. Anyway, okay, so I do want to address at least one real world situation because you mentioned demons, and I don't know if your perspective on this has changed or not. But I remember some years ago we had a conversation about Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, and I think both of us at the time, at least, thought that he saw something, that he had a real experience of some kind.
He was also eating mushrooms at the time, so I'm not 100% certain of that. But I think that's more likely than not.
A hallucination is a real experience.
It is a real experience, but it doesn't tend to be as consistent as what Muhammad was experiencing. So I think it's more likely he was experiencing something spiritual.
Yes, and that was my opinion back then as well, that I think Muhammad saw an actual demon who was actually trying to deceive him and did a really good job of it.
He was in the cave. Yeah. Afterwards, I think he became more of a manipulator, but early on in the cave, yeah, I think he was interacting with an actual spiritual entity. Yeah, just not an angel.
And so I mean, I think one spiritual truth I would absolutely put forward here is, if you think you're seeing a ghost, that's probably not something you want to listen to, or it's because if God were to send you or me or anyone else an angel, it's not going to pretend to be your dead grandma.
No.
We have only a handful of examples of this happening in Scripture, but in those examples, the angels don't claim to be anything other than what they are. Well, okay, there's the angels that visit Lot, but they don't deny who they are. They don't show up as Lot's long lost great grandfather who.
Yeah, and something similar happens with the angel that visited Samson's parents.
Mm-hmm.
It was much more of a, oh, hey, how you doing? I'm just another guy kind of a thing. Here's a message from the Lord. And then and eventually just like, oh, wait, no, this is actually an angel. But what you don't tend to have is you don't have to have this kind of deception that would be necessary for an angel to come in the guise of a person that you know. I don't think that happens.
Right. Even when God is using miraculous signs to get something across to a particularly stubborn person, he doesn't, I think God actually made Balaam's donkey talk. Yep. I don't think that was an angel pretending to be a donkey. Nope. And if you believe in a God who can create existence out of nothingness, of course he can make a donkey talk. Mm-hmm. I mean,
he doesn't tend to, but he certainly can, yeah.
Right. And as Christians, we believe in a God who literally raised himself from the dead, which is the number one reason why I listen to what Jesus says. Because I promise you, and I'm stealing this line, but I promise you, if somebody out there dies and then raises themselves from the dead, I'm going to listen very carefully to what they say. I don't argue with people who can raise themselves from the dead. Thankfully, I have very limited, well, not very limited experience, but I have a very short list of people I can apply that rule to.
One. But it is worth here at least talking a little bit about Samuel, because at the end
that was going to be my third question.
Oh, how did I not know that? So
we're talking about Saul and Samuel, right?
Yeah. So Saul comes to the witch of Endor. Well, actually, I think it's the witch of the third moon of Endor. Anyway.
Yes.
He goes, yeah.
She was already a Wookiee, but they couldn't afford the costumes. The Ewoks were replaced. The Ewoks were originally the script that was supposed to be a planet of Wookiees, and they replaced it with Ewoks.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Anyway, moving on for that. Saul goes to the witch, and she summons the spirit of Samuel, and I think she summons the real spirit of Samuel. But at the end of the day, I think that God is the one that sent Samuel there to show up for Saul. That if God did not want that to have happened, it wouldn't have worked. So I don't think that worked.
This episode of Hey a Movie is brought to you by trees. Yes, trees, your number one source for paper, wood, fruit, and a ready supply of oxygen. Trees are another fine product of Yahweh Triunity.
Because of the power of the witch. I think that worked because of the power of God. God basically used the witch to freak Saul out as a kind of punishment on him. But this is kind of the reason why I give credence to the possibility of this kind of thing happening again. It happened once. We know it happened once. Therefore, it can happen again. So.
Right. And on the other hand, just because it happened once, don't go get all high and mighty on yourself and decide you're that important.
Yeah.
Chances are better than not, you either ate a bad sausage or odd bit of beef or barley, or you're just imagining things. Or if having a real experience with a real being claiming to be somebody you used to know, I would not listen to them. In fact, I would run. Okay, Martin, it's your turn for the discussion question. So let's get into that.
So how do you define the difference between faith and belief?
Well, the word for faith in the New Testament is pistis, and pistis speaks more than just believing something exists or having knowledge of something. I can tell you all sorts of things about the Communist Party in any country. I can give you a base outline of what Marx and Engels taught and how it was applied in the world. I am as far from a communist as you can possibly get. I do not believe in communism. I do not have faith in communism. If I had any faith in communism, it's that it's going to ruin whatever country it's running. But I have a tremendous amount of knowledge. There was I can't remember the name of the podcast, the podcaster or the book that originally talked about it. I know it was originally on my buddy Will Hess's podcast, The Church Split, which I do recommend. And also, you should know that Will wrote a book, and if you watch one episode of his show, you'll hear it 7 or 8 times. Love you, Will. I completely forgot what I was talking about. The idea of faith is more of a concept of allegiance, and allegiance means more than just it's trust, but it's also allegiance. And as Wesleyan Arminians, as both of us are, and we've both appeared together and separately on the Society of Evangelical Arminian podcast, which is the other show I'll plug right now, we both do believe it is possible for somebody to abandon their faith, which is not the same thing as lose. And if you ever use the phrase lose your salvation and Arminianism together, you can expect me to strangle you. Because
through the internet,
what it really is treason.
Yeah.
And so I have allegiance as a citizen to the United States. I am not going to commit treason against my country. The only reason I would ever commit treason against my country is in a situation where if I failed to do so, I would be committing treason against my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. At which point the country I live in can take a hike. But unless that happens, I'm going to maintain my allegiance to this country, no matter how well or poorly it's being run at the time. My loyalty is still to the nation and what it stands for, and
also to the people.
and to the people. And my faith and loyalty to Christ is more than just I believe all these facts about Jesus. I have a genuine relationship with him. He is my best friend. Sorry, Martin. He is the closest. He is the closest person in the world. He is the closest person in the world. Kristen, if you watch this, I'm sorry. I think you're okay with that. But yeah, I mean, more than just believing facts about someone.
Putting your faith in Jesus Christ, swearing fealty to him, that he is your Lord, he is your King. But it's also relational, because we are Arminian. We think in relational terms. We are not. We are socially centered, unlike Calvinists who are culturally centered, which you probably hear me say that 100 times. But it is this focus on interpersonal relationships, understanding things in social dynamics, that our God, he is our King, he is our Lord, and we are supposed to be loyal to him. We are supposed to swear fealty to him. We do not have the power to save ourselves. We are only saved by his grace and by his kindness. Otherwise would have no opportunity to be saved. But in return, he does expect loyalty to him, because he is a jealous God, and he doesn't want us to both worship him and also worship Baal at the same time. That's adulterous to him.
Yes. And
literally,
and it is not just a governmental relationship either. It's a familial relationship.
Yes.
The reason we are allowed in the Father's house, in part, is because we are the church. As the church, we are to be the bride of Christ. About a year ago, right around now, as a matter of fact, I've told this story. When Hurricane Helene hit South Carolina, my kids were out of school for the entire week, and we didn't have power, so my wife decided to get out of town. And she drove to another state and stayed in the home of a couple who are not her blood relatives. But she stayed there free of charge, was welcomed there, ate at their table, slept in their beds, used their stuff. Why? Her husband is the son of the owners of the house. She stayed at my parents' house. And that's why she was able to go there and stay there. She was welcome there. She is family to them. And she is as welcome as I am.
Whose house that is.
Right. Another analogy I use, even though I no longer live anywhere close to my parents' house, I still have a key to the house. Yeah. And in some imaginary scenario, if I found myself stranded in Syracuse, New York, where I grew up, and my parents were out of town for whatever reason, and I did not have the ability to get home, and I had no money to get a hotel room or any of that stuff, I know without even getting a hold of them that I have their blessing to use my key, go into their house, eat their food, use their stuff, sleep in a bed, because I'm their child. And I would have that freedom without any warning. And that is because they are my parents. They love me. They would want me to do that. In fact, they would be angry if I went to a hotel in that situation. And the interesting thing about the key I have is that it's not a key I've had since I lived there, because they had to replace the door at some point after I was an adult. But my mom still made my parents still made me a new key to make sure I had that. And so, again, that's really what faith means. And that's what, truly believing in and trusting in Christ means.
So when we see that these three men, and eventually Winston by the end of the film, are paragons of belief, are we talking about belief here, or are we talking about faith as Christians understand it?
I would say Ray definitely has faith as Christians understand it from the beginning. I believe Egon also had faith as Christians understand it from the beginning. I think Egon just displayed it very differently. Egon is a genuine, heartfelt believer. He's also a Lutheran. And specifically makes me think of my Pap, who I mentioned earlier, who his faith was very genuine. He was not showy about it.
Well, hold on. So I would disagree with you. I would say that in this movie there is no faith. They all are paragons specifically of belief. So Ray and Egon from the very beginning are true believers, but they don't swear fealty to the ghosts. They don't trust in the ghosts. They're not. There's no loyalty to the ghosts. They treat the ghosts as pests that they capture and then throw into a machine in their basement. So there's no faith here at all. Quite frankly, they have the same kind of belief in ghosts that we do in demons. And I don't have faith in demons, but I do believe in them. So I would say that we actually do not have faith here. They don't have faith in ghosts. They do have belief in ghosts. And
then Venkman is, if we're going to put Venkman in a Christian category, he's kind of Benny Hinn. He might have genuine, I believe it's there. But he also sees it as a chance to make money. He is a shyster
who's selling actual healing ointment.
Selling actual what?
Actual healing ointment. Like, he's not selling snake oil. He's selling like actual legitimate healing ointment. But that's just a coincidence. He was selling snake oil. That's what he had to sell.
And he did. He was doing that at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, exactly what he was doing at the beginning of the movie. Yeah.
To the point where he was actually damaging the scientific legitimacy of his study, because the guy who was giving shocks for everything was actually starting to get answers right.
Yeah.
So, all right, what else you got for questions?
So, I was talking before that they're paragons, and thus they're paragons of belief. So, what does that mean for the film? Is the film trying to tell us that we are supposed to believe in the supernatural, or is the faith, or is the movie just trying to explore what it's like to be a believer in something?
I think the movie was trying to sell tickets.
As a piece of art. Okay. I think even though it's entertainment, it is also art. I think it's legitimate art.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, so I'm going to see what answer you have in the back of your head.
I think it actually is making an argument about belief. I think that's the whole reason why you have the main villain as an atheist who is Peck. That you're dealing with, because these are paragons and they're changing the world around them. How do they change the world around them? They make New York into believers. They all, everyone in New York believes in ghosts by the end of the movie. And it's not even that they all sort of have equal opinions about ghosts, or they're all just as sure as they are, but there is this sense that they're not going to doubt their lying eyes, and that there is something actually heroic about knowing that something is true that everybody tells you is false, and staying with that belief because you know that it's true. There is no virtue in believing something without evidence, or believing in something in opposition to the evidence that's around you. But when you know the evidence, and you know what is right, and you know what is true, and you remain a believer in that, even when the rest of the world tells you you're wrong, there is something heroic about sticking to it. And even in the case of the Ghostbusters, even cashing in on it.
Peck.
Yes, Peck. I mentioned his name.
You said Kesh.
I think you misheard me. I believe you meant to say Peck.
That's possible. Right.
Well, bringing Peck back up, that brings me to my third question. I've often heard atheists say that if God's name across the sky, which I'm assuming the name here would be Yahweh, like created by Yahweh, and is written across the sky, that if God were to do that, they would be believers. That's all it would take for God to get them to believe, because they're thinking in terms of belief instead of faith anyway. So, but I've heard them say this, that that's all it would take. And yet we have Peck here, right? So when Peck goes downstairs in the basement and he turns off the, what's it called? He turns off the containment field and he releases all the ghosts, and they tell him, don't do it. And then he does it anyway. Then all the ghosts burst out and, just fill up all of New York. And he then comes to the mayor's office later on, and he still says that the ghosts are false. He still says that the ghosts are a lie. And so here's the question I have for you. With your interaction with atheists, do you think that this description of them, where they would believe in God if like he did something obvious, do you think that's an accurate description of most atheists? Or do you think that Peck is more of an accurate description of most atheists?
I think Peck is a very accurate example of most atheists. I think most atheists don't find God for the same reason criminals don't find the police. They're trying to avoid him. I mean, years ago did a meme before I started doing them more regularly as newspaper articles in the style of Babylon Bee, where the story was that God literally did that, in this hypothetical situation. And I quoted Bart Ehrman as saying, well, clearly the entire world just experienced a mass hallucination. And I genuinely think that's what Bart Ehrman would say. I think because, again, there are people who very much want to be in control of their own lives, and so they make decisions like that, and they would deny God. There were people who denied Jesus when he was standing in front of them. I believe it's Matthew who noted that some doubted, didn't throw Thomas under the bus, but Thomas gets a bad rap, I think.
I think so too.
Because here's the thing about Thomas. He said, I need to put my finger in the nail prints and put my hand in his side. And then when he did that, got the opportunity to do that, his response was not, well, how do I know I'm not hallucinating? His response was to throw his arms around Jesus, fall on his knees, and say, my Lord and my God.
And he doesn't actually put his hands in the holes. He doesn't actually do it. Yeah.
I mean,
seeing Jesus was actually enough for him.
Yeah. So he asked for that sign, but when he got it, he believed. And, there's a lot of scholarship out there by scholars I truly respect right now about, whether or not all but one of the apostles were martyred. But aside from the four that we can say with darn near absolute certainty, Peter, Paul, James, the brother of Jesus, James, the son of Zebedee, Thomas is the next closest, based on the traditions held in Indian Christian churches going back centuries.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that is very much what an atheist would actually say and do. I think, and Martin, I know you said you haven't seen the new movies. Skip the one with the girls, and it's not because it's the one with the girls. It's just a bad movie.
Yeah, I actually blotted that one out of my mind.
Well, yeah, that movie was just bad because you had what made Ghostbusters 1984 so good is you had four very unique characters. You have Egon, who is the believer, but he's the very scientific, very matter-of-fact believer. Then you have Ray, who's kind of the wild-eyed, wow guy.
Yeah.
You have Peter, who sees the chance to make money off of it. And you have Winston, who is the everyman who's been hired on.
And he's just looking for a
and
paycheck.
Who's just looking for a paycheck, but ends up being a true believer. Now, Martin, you haven't seen Afterlife or Frozen Empire yet, but in Frozen
No, but
Empire,
do you understand the girl in that is Egon's like daughter or
Yep.
Yeah.
And in the second film, the new team, which is being led by, which is 3 of the 4 members of the new team, are Egon's daughter and his grandson and granddaughter, and Paul Rudd. But they're actually back in New York and again performing these services, and then end up getting called into the mayor's office, and the mayor is Walter Peck. And he still doesn't believe. So he lived through the events of Ghostbusters 2. Afterlife doesn't really take place in New York, so he can be forgiven for that. But
Yeah.
And then this movie, and he still doesn't believe. And I think that's a really good explanation of what a lot of atheists would do if Jesus appeared to them.
And it's important that we're noting that this is true of a lot of atheists. There's nothing we could say that's true of absolutely all atheists because
Right.
they're very varied. But in my experience, I absolutely agree that atheists do not tend to really be open to evidence. They don't tend to be open to argumentation. Some are like Alex O'Connor is a good counterexample. He is someone who clearly is open to a lot of arguments. I have a lot of respect for Alex O'Connor. There have been some other counterexamples. They do exist, but most of them, like Matt Dillahunty, no, he's not an open-minded guy. Yeah, he's not an open-minded guy. If God wrote his name across the sky, he would just think he was hallucinating, and that's obvious. Because he doesn't want to believe, and that's very, very clear. Bart Ehrman, he was hurt when he was younger. And I don't mean physically, but like just socially, he was
church
hurt. Yeah, he was church hurt, and therefore he doesn't want to believe in God. And there are a lot of other examples of atheists that are like this, that are just. And I'm not saying that every person who is a skeptic or every person who doesn't believe in God is just stubborn. I'm just saying that most internet atheists are. They're much more Walter Peck than they are who they think they are.
There is a book that I want to find that Cliff Knechtel, the Bible Answers guy, who goes on college campuses and solicits questions from students about the Bible and about Christ. He references this book called Faith of the Fatherless. And the point of this book is that the top 100 atheists in the last century have one very unique thing in common: daddy issues.
Yep.
And so there is a real connection to that right there. And, and people whose fathers were not present deliberately, especially.
And we're seeing a generation right now of people who have horrible father relationships, and we're seeing a lack of spirituality. We're seeing a lack of trust in God. We're seeing a lack of ethical grounding. It's having a father is very important to having a model for who God is, and it does a lot of damage to a person's soul to be disconnected from their father. It does even more damage to be disconnected from their father in heaven.
Exactly. Yeah. So do you have any more discussion questions before we go on to our review?
I do want to say to atheists out there who to any that are open to just evidence generally, keep looking into the evidence. Don't be don't change your mind based off of something we've said on this podcast, because we're not making arguments for God's existence here. We're just simply reflecting upon the movie and its interaction with the notion of belief versus lack of belief. This is much more of an exploration of the topic than it is an argument for the topic. It's worth noting that. But for any of you atheists out there who really are church hurt, that you really are people who just, or you're hurt because of your father, do not base your understanding of reality off of your emotions. And I encourage you to just find Christians who you trust and develop good relationships with them. Don't just simply dismiss what they have to say, and don't just simply dismiss their character or their personal integrity because we believe in something backwards or something ancient or something along those lines. Just develop good, strong friendships and relationships with us. And maybe one day you'll be healed to a point where you can believe in God. Maybe one day you won't. This isn't trickery or anything, but that is the real test of the faith, because it's about faith. It's not about belief. And faith is going to come through relationships. It's not going to come strictly through mental categories.
Right. And the most important thing to remember is I wouldn't ask someone to believe in Christ because of Christians, because we have the same problems that everyone else has. We're dirty, rotten sinners too. We're just one hungry beggar trying to tell another hungry beggar where to find free living bread. I don't want to, I want to welcome you into my church. I want to welcome you into the community, but church is an AA meeting. I mean, it's not, it's not the people who have their lives together club. Church.
And there are a lot of messed up people in the church. A lot of them.
Right.
You don't go into hospitals expecting to find healthy people.
Exactly. And you don't wait until you're in shape to start going to the gym. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're
especially
avoiding
not Planet Fitness.
What's that?
Especially not Planet Fitness.
That's true too. Well, my office has a gym, so I just use that. But yeah, I mean, not going to church because all the people who are sinners and who are imperfect there is like not going to the gym because of all the fat people. Well, yeah, we're there for a reason. I don't go to the gym to show off both of my muscles. I go to the gym to get in shape. I'm there.
Considering one of those muscles is your tongue.
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting on the other one. So, but yeah, I mean, church is an AA meeting. Church is where all of us gather to support each other so that we can not fall off the wagon and so we can suck a little bit less.
Yeah, pastors like me, we're not perfect, and
I can vouch for that.
Yep, and a lot of pastors.
Trust me, his wife told me.
Especially considering older generations, there's this idea that the pastor needs to be aloof and the pastor needs to read it out and needs to have this sense of perfection that people can live up to. Meanwhile, in my sermons, I actually tell my church what all my issues are. And in like Bible study, I'm like, I have this problem. And I start saying, this was literally a couple of weeks ago, in a Bible study. I said, so one of the things that Paul is saying here is that we need to confess our sins to one another. So here's a sin of mine, and then I went into it. and I'm not going to do that online, but I was willing to do that in Bible study, and I wasn't doing that because, hey, here's this great sin I have, or anything else along those lines. I was doing it to set an example because that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be sharing each other's burdens, sharing each other's sins, being open about things, not hiding things. Exposure is the fundamental means by which we defeat the sin in our lives. sin festers in the dark. It's where it has its most strength, and we go to the church as a safe place for us to confess our sins and say, "Here are our problems. Please heal me, redeem me."
Yeah.
And then the church says, "We can't. Let me show you the guy who can."
Right.
And then we all work together. And I love the church, but I've been hurt in the church so many times. It's constant. And as a pastor, nobody suffers church hurt more than a pastor. Let me tell you. Pastors get hit hard. They get hit, and they get hit hard and often. But I'm not in it because I want an easy life. I'm in it because I know that God is real. I know that God loves me. I know that God loves them. And this is the vehicle by which he reveals himself. And I've seen him do it.
Yeah. I guess we could probably add that to the list of reasons why I'm not allowed to be a member of a church, you pastor. Because, my last name doesn't give it away. I may or may not know somebody who can take care of things. And, if somebody comes after one of my friends, I'm joking, maybe. But, listen, my daughters are going to start dating eventually. I can't admit that I really don't know anybody because I might.
Yeah.
But actually, I genuinely do know a couple of people who were definitely used to be.
Moving on.
No, this is pertinent. This is pertinent
all right,
to
sure,
this
sure.
discussion. Right. Because my uncle, by marriage, but my uncle's father was definitely connected. And he ran a print shop that his son still runs to this day. His son has admitted to me he ran the business as a front originally. Then he went to church.
Then he got really good at it.
No. Then he went to church, met Jesus Christ, got saved, left that life, and said, well, heck, I still have to provide for my family. This is a pretty good business, and went legitimate with it. And it's still in business to this day, and, this is going back 20 plus years. So, yeah, I mean...
I think that's it for my discussion questions.
Okay, so just to wrap this up, we are going to give you 2 ratings for this movie, 1 to 5 stars. The first rating is just simply the movie. As a movie, as a way to spend an hour and a half of entertainment. On a scale of 1 to 5 stars, what would you rate Ghostbusters?
Say 4.
Give it a good 4 1/4. I think I don't know if you remember. I mean, I know you remember that we did the draft game for a while. We would draft fantasy teams. And I believe I took Ghostbusters with the first. I remember I took something with the first overall pick, thinking I'd also get. I took Ghostbusters second, I believe. I took Holy Grail first, thinking you would never take Ghostbusters that high.
Yeah.
And then I ended up having to trade Monty Python and the Holy Grail to you to get Ghostbusters on my team because it meant so much to me.
Yeah.
It was either Ghostbusters or Blazing Saddles.
Means a lot to me. Yeah.
The Holy Grail means a lot to me too. I just thought you were going to go a different direction with your first pick, and I was going to get both.
I think I took Ghostbusters because I knew you would want it.
Yep, you did. I think you did. It was, I can't remember. It was either Ghostbusters or Blazing Saddles. And either way, you made the right move because I ended up trading you Holy Grail to get it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a solid movie. As a film, now as our second rating is probably.
I think it does have flaws as a film, And while I think it's a very entertaining film, to say that it's a good film, yeah, if you remember that distinction, like I do think that it is legitimate art, though. I think it's a legitimate art. I think it has some very good, important things to say clearly, both in terms of capitalism and also in terms of spirituality. I think that there are some important things it has to say. So, as a piece of art, I do think that it's also a very good film.
Yes,
But
and I'm gonna take a quick aside because I think this will come up as we proceed. Martin and I, for years, have drawn the distinction between a good movie and an enjoyable movie. An example of a good movie, a classic example, is Rocky. Rocky has a great script, great visuals, great acting, great everything about it. It is an artistic masterpiece of a film. It is a good movie. An example of an enjoyable movie is Rocky 3. Rocky 3 lacks all that stuff I just listed, and
all
I
of it,
love,
all of it,
love
I love
Rocky.
it.
Rocky 3 is just plain fun. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have the deep character arc. It even has Adrian pushing Rocky into the fight at the
Which makes
end,
no
which
sense
is
for her
completely
character.
against her character. But I love that movie. That is an enjoyable movie. It's fun. I like it. It's worth my time. I'm not giving it 5 stars anyway. I'm not giving it
No.
4 stars in terms of quality, but I do love that movie.
Yeah.
So
I'm not going to give anything like anything that's a strictly enjoyable film. I'm not going to give anything higher than a 3.
Yep.
But there are a lot of movies that are good movies that I'm also going to rank as 3 because they're not particularly enjoyable, like Citizens Kane. Which I like Citizen Kane, but it
You're
has some
weird.
enjoyability flaws. Yeah, I'm weird for liking it as much as I did. But
Yes.
it's
So anyway, so now we're going to talk about the real reason we're here. And on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, in terms of biblical accuracy of the spiritual themes, what would you rate Ghostbusters?
now this is hard because I think that the spiritual themes that are as themes, they explore them like they explore them well in terms of hypotheticals, like the actual theme of belief. I think it explores very well. However, the actual theme of the spiritual realm, it doesn't explore well. It doesn't really present real world spirituality in a realistic or in a realistic fashion, or even in a healthy fashion, I would say. So I would have to basically say, in terms of spiritual accuracy, I'll give it 2.5.
Wow,
and
you're going to be more generous than me.
I really like what it has to say about belief. Like I think its exploration of belief is a legitimate aspect of the film that I have a high respect for. But it's exploring as a spiritual realm is an absolute disaster. So I can't go as high as 3. So I'll say 2.5.
Well, I'm just going to go give my rating strictly based on how biblically accurate this film represents spirit, the spirit world. And based on that, I'm going to have to give it a 0.5 star, because the idea that the spirit realm is evil, pesky ghosts who are either John Belushi reincarnated,
Really?
or
I didn't know that.
the first ghosts they bust in the second movie were murderers who were executed. They're all bad. They're all bad. And Gozer, this demigod, these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do believe that some people, ancient people who saw gods that they worshipped in pagan deities, there may have been demons masquerading. I think Muhammad interacted with a demon whom it was masquerading. I think Joseph Smith was full of crap, and that's why he went out of business. But
Yeah, and mind you, there's also a lot in here I could say about Realm and Michael Heiser's work, and which is really he's just popularizing well-known scholastic material, which I didn't go into here, but because I think Ghostbusters is a little too light of a film to really tackle those subjects. But yeah, the spiritual realm stuff in the movie is just abysmal. It's not. It's fun, but it's not. But there's nothing true there.
yeah, there really is nothing true there. Okay, well, thank you for tuning in to this debut episode of Hey a Movie. I certainly hope it will improve from here. But for tonight, I'm Chris Bastido.
And I'm Pastor Martin Glenn.
Thank you for turning in to the debut episode of Hey a Movie.
2 in the box.
Ready to go.
We be fast and
They be slow.
There'll be mystery and catastrophe, but it's all in fun. You pay no money, wait and see. Hey, a movie.